You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, we are Enterprise-Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I'm Jamie, and these are my co-hosts Maria.
Hello.
And Bill.
Greetings to all the people of Earth.
And we have a special guest today. We've got Jarrah. Hi, Jarrah.
Are you seeking Jamaharan?
Jarrah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with Star Trek and particularly with Enterprise?
Sure. So I've been watching Star Trek since I was about 9 or 10, was raised on TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and I am currently one of the hosts of Women at Warp, a Star Trek podcast. One thing that we at Women at Warp are unfortunately somewhat known for is not all liking Enterprise very much, and so we are always trying to find guests to come on who will say nice things about Enterprise, because we don't want to yuck people's yum necessarily. I have watched most of Enterprise, but there's a few outlying episodes that I just never got around to. And I would say that my favorite thing about Enterprise is that it's the first uniforms with pockets.
Yes, thank you.
What the heck is an outlying episode of Enterprise?
I don't know. I hope we've not had any of them.
I started watching through like episode by episode and got discouraged and then was told it's better in season 3 and skipped ahead. So I'm missing like towards the end of season 2. And then when I was watching, I watched a few episodes that we were doing podcasts on, but missed a couple others. So I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Enterprise.
Good Lord, I'm glad for that. Nobody needs that in the world.
The thing that fascinates me about Enterprise is how few really huge Star Trek fans have seen Enterprise, have seen it more than once, or seen all of it, or sometimes any of it. As somebody who's sort of come to Star Trek very late, like I've seen how big of fans people are, and I just assumed people would be into all of it. It's the thing that attracted me to Enterprise and made me want to do this podcast was the fact that I would talk to my friends who are huge Star Trek fans, and they were like, we don't know Enterprise.
To steal somebody else's line, a lot of people treat it like the 13th floor in a hotel. It just doesn't exist. You just go right past it.
Yeah, I tried twice before this to watch it, and I didn't make it even to the midpoint of the first season. Just couldn't do it. It was like, nope, can't. If you made it to season 2 the first time around, I'm pretty impressed.
I try.
All right, well, today we're going to be talking about the Star Trek Enterprise episode 2 Days and 2 Nights. However, Jarrah is the only person who's actually watched it, so she's going to explain to all of us what happened on that episode. But before we get to that, let's first talk a little bit about last week's episode. So last week, Maria told us about the episode Desert Crossing. Bill and I were finally able to watch it. And spoiler for 2 minutes from now, I absolutely despised this episode.
Jamie's fighting a temporal Cold War with the podcast. We're getting messages from the future.
Really?
But Bill, why don't you tell us what you thought of it before I go into my rant?
Okay, first of all,
take over everything.
I had a feeling you might have rants.
I love Clancy Brown. I stand second to no one. I have been in on this guy since I saw him in Highlander. He just shows up in a bunch of things. He's absolutely fantastic. What the hell is he doing in this?
His accent.
This whole episode is a broke-ass version of Lawrence of Arabia that they shot on a beach in Malibu over 2 days. And he is doing Anthony Quinn as both Zorba the Greek and the Arab leader that he's portrayed so very convincingly in Lawrence of Arabia. I watched this with a friend of mine who has only seen like a handful of Star Trek episodes, and he said, I keep expecting Clancy Brown to say, "You are strong like bear." I love Clancy Brown. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he got a check. This guy did not grow up in the desert. Like, Clancy Brown is as pale as Scott Bakula in this episode.
That's a great point. I did not even think about that, but oh my god, you're right. He was so pale.
I'm sure Jamie is going to get to issues of cultural appropriation in her forthcoming rant. This is what were they doing? Did they? I assume this was like the third to last episode of the season. I assume they were just out of money at this point and needed to go to the desert and shoot stuff.
By the way, Clancy Brown is from Ohio. I looked it up.
He is.
His father was a Republican congressman who served in Reagan's administration.
Yep.
Wow.
And his grandfather was also a Republican congressman. Like, this man is a white man. Like, as I was like, well, maybe, and no.
Nope. And as a matter of fact, I believe his family was Little Brown and Company, the publishers. That's where they get their generational money from. Yeah. Always happy to see him, and he could have certainly played a character like this, but it's just, there's nothing here. I assume that certain members of the audience enjoyed Scott Bakula and Connor Trinier shirtless. Why did they take off their shirts? When you described this and said, by the way, they're playing shirts versus skins, but no one else is, I was like, all right.
Other people, that's not true. There were other people with their shirts off, too.
Okay. Well,
Stephen had
the
Stephen had the exact same reaction. He's like, why are they taking their shirts off? And I was like, look, there are other people in that scene who don't have shirts on.
Yeah.
However, I understand that might be a nuance that I noticed that others may not have for various reasons.
I think they were trying to juice the ratings, but really just another nothing episode.
Yeah, they were trying to juice the ratings with the slow-mo of the lacrosse scene.
Oh, I have one more note that I thought was like, this feels like fanfic. This feels like someone who's a fan of Scott Bakula wrote this episode.
This feels like all of the cameramen that they hired from Baywatch ending were like, this is our moment. We know how to do this. Give us the scene. We will do it. Jarrah, what are your memories of this episode?
I literally only remember shirtless sand lacrosse and maybe some problematic Middle Eastern allegory.
Yeah, that's basically the whole episode.
That's all you need to.
You got it.
You got it.
Perfect summary.
Moving on.
Why was our episode an hour long?
I will start with some of the stuff that I liked about this episode. I liked that Archer had a water polo duffel bag that said North American Regionals 2134 on the side.
Oh, I didn't notice that. How cool.
Oh, I wrote that down too, yeah.
He was like you can imagine him at the airport with all of his like college buddies with their matching duffel bags.
Can I interject to just say this is a Star Trek pet peeve of mine, is the idea that water polo has survived into the future and baseball has not.
Scott Bakula must have a tie to water polo. That's the only thing I can figure because it's such a weird sport to choose.
I think it's probably Braga. I think
maybe
that's
so.
the more and more I watch this episode, it feels like this is Braga's fan fiction. This is like he's getting to remake original series Trek. Archer feels like a real self-insert for someone, and he's a Mary Sue. Oh yeah,
I loved their Starfleet hot weather outfits.
I knew you would.
First time we saw those. I know they looked great in those pants, have to say.
Yeah.
Pants
those pants were so well
love to see those pants come back. Speaking of people looking good, T'Pol has never looked better than she has in this episode. I think because she did a lot of the like perched on the edge of the captain's chair, which she just always looks great when she does that. But also because unlike most of the scenes when she's in charge of the bridge, Trip was not there to interrupt her constantly, so she actually got to be like radiating confidence and control the conversation. I really think it's because Trip wasn't there undermining her at every moment that she actually got to be in charge, and I loved it, and I need more of it.
Yeah.
So I've been watching a lot of Strange New Worlds and enjoying it, and I was also going back and watching some original series stuff. I'm wondering if, because when Nimoy does the unemotional Vulcan that enrages people, he has sort of a blank expression on his face. He's just stating a fact. Well, 500 people are going to die. He's just like has this blank. Is it, Jolene Blaylock's full, voluptuous, pouty lips that make her look like she's disapproving of people why she says these things? Or are they arching her eyebrows differently?
I think it's
Or is
just
it just
because
pure
she's a
sexism?
woman and
Okay,
people
that's pure
interpret
sexism.
it differently. I really think
Fair
that that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that might be what is considered resting bitch face.
Yeah, oh yeah. Resting Vulcan face.
Resting Vulcan face.
Okay, fair enough.
I loved the Top Gun lacrosse scene. That was great.
They could have gone much further with that.
No pants.
This
That should have been the
Really
whole
just felt like it
episode.
came out
That's
of
what I was
nowhere.
about to say. This episode, if this episode had just been them playing lacrosse for 45 minutes, I would be all in. Like, fine.
So everything I hated. First of all, why did Archer have to take Trip? Trip did not even want to go.
Yeah.
And yet he took him anyway. Hoshi would have loved this. She loves going down to planets and meeting people. But no. He had to take Trip so that it could be an episode of all white men.
All boys.
Archer is the master of taking people on missions who do not want to go on missions. People are actively begging him. It's like, why did you bring me on this mission?
Here's the other component of that. In every other Star Trek, nobody has a choice. You get told if you're going on the mission or not.
Yep.
But this wasn't even, they were just like going down to have dinner. It didn't even seem like
Right.
it was a mission.
Yes.
It seemed like they were just hanging out. He treated it like they were just hanging out for the night and not like they're making a first contact.
Right, which is why I think he wanted his bro, right?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. He just wanted to go down and have fun, and so he wanted his buddy to come with him. But secondly, I feel like they were trying to go for like an ambiguous ethical situation, but we never seem to get enough information to make any of it make sense. Like, I actually didn't really know what was actually going on. We get the thing where that Shawshank Redemption guy with the indistinct accent, the other people called him a terrorist, but he seemed to think he was a freedom fighter. But it also wasn't clear exactly what he was fighting against or what the other people were doing to him. And why were they calling him a terrorist? Is it because he's leading protests, or is he actually committing acts of violence?
Right.
Everything was super unclear. Like, I actually had no idea what was
It
going on with
seemed
that.
like they were talking about, if I recall, they said something like, we tried to do peaceful protests, but then we found that the only way that they would listen is if we attacked civilians, or quite that, but something like that.
Sorry, I literally just watched this today. There was something where they had a caste system that they got rid of, and they thought things were going to get better, so they were trying to cooperate with the system, and then suddenly that didn't happen. The evil, the quote-unquote
he
evil
says
government
it didn't
guys.
get better, but then he didn't really say in what ways. Like, he mentioned that the caste system was gone, but then he said, oh, but like this other clan is still in charge of the government.
In charge of
but then
everything.
I had all these questions about, like, well, what are they doing with it? Are they using being in charge of the government to discriminate? How did they get in charge of the government? Were there fair elections and they just happened to win? And then once they got in power, what are they doing with it? None of that was actually clear. No. I'm always skeptical when anyone says, like, this other group, they're in charge of everything. And is that right?
Jamie,
I just felt like there wasn't enough information to know either side what was going on, and I didn't trust anyone.
It's an underwritten episode.
I think you are absolutely right, Jamie. I think what you are looking for is nuance, which Enterprise does not appear to have any of.
No.
But then also,
or detail.
They made this episode out like it's going to be Archer like trying to decide what to do and whether he should like get involved or not. But actually, he never wrestled with that at all. From the beginning, he's like, I'm not getting involved with this. So then it's like, well, then what's the point of it?
Well, again, I don't want to defend this fucking show, but what I will say, and the thing that I thought that I took away from it was this was another opportunity for Archer to be like, oh shit, there are consequences to my actions, and maybe we need a prime direct. I feel like they are just sort of lobbing these things at us to make us realize we need a prime directive when everybody knows we need a prime directive. Like there's not a question here.
before they come up with a prime directive, maybe they could come up with literally any protocols at all for visiting an alien planet. Like, before you go visit an alien planet for the first time and make first contact, you should contact the planet and let them know you're coming. Instead of just like, I don't know, I met this random guy and he invited me to his house for dinner. I guess we'll just take the shuttle down. I just like don't understand why they don't have any protocols at all. And they should probably figured all this out before leaving Earth.
Because this show is half-baked and they started production before they were ready.
And I think we talked about this in the last episode too. When they know they're in trouble, they never like even consider going back and calling Starfleet and saying, hey, what do we know about these people? Can you guys give us some backup on this? Because, I don't know, it was just very strange.
But mostly, it was just wild to have an episode that is supposedly about ethnic discrimination and only have white men in the entire episode.
Yep.
And just because one of them had a weird accent and vaguely ethnic clothing, he's still a white man. Like, I did not understand this episode at all.
Again, I don't want to defend this episode because I agree it was a terrible episode. The only thing that I can think of there is if you think of it as a caste system and you compare it to a caste system in India.
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
Everybody's brown, but there are different levels just based on how you're born, where, you know, what family you're born into, and the color of your skin doesn't actually matter, although it does because technically the Dalits tended to be darker skinned and being fair, it tends all of that stuff. But that's the only thing I can think of, and that might be why they used the word caste.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Believable to me. I just find it strange that the choice for this episode was to have literally only white men. Like, even on the planet, we only saw white men. That's why they were able to have one team just take their shirts off on television. I just didn't like it.
No, it's a bad episode.
Anyways, we can move on.
Yeah. Terrible episode.
Our job is not to justify this show.
No, let us never speak of it again.
Now that we got that out of the way, why don't we take a short break to hear from one of our sister podcasts on the ASO network?
There are a lot of great podcasts that review Doctor Who episodes in order. The Earth Station Who podcast is not one of them. Just like the Doctor, we never know where or when we'll end up, but we'll have a lot of fun talking about it. From classic Who to new series and big finish, join the Earth Station Who crew wherever fine podcasts are found. Earth Station Who is a founding member of the ESO network.
It's now time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
2 days and 2 nights. Shore leave takes some interesting twists when the Enterprise crew finally arrives at Risa, the famous pleasure planet.
Very, very mini spoiler is it is the title of the episode that is spoken the most times in the episode for no reason.
Oh, Jesus, great.
Nobody in Best of Both Worlds really goes, well, Picard, I guess that really was the best of both worlds. Not really. What the fuck would you say that, Riker?
All right. Well, it's now time for Two Truths and a Lie. Jarrah, as our special guest explainer for this episode, you have prepared 3 statements, 2 of which are true, 1 of which is a lie. So it's all you.
All right. So in this episode, 3 things. First off, T'Pol gets Archer a gag gift.
Plausible. Okay.
Malcolm, in a moment of vulnerability, admits he's attracted to men.
100%
Total
not.
lie.
Absolutely.
Total lie. That's it. That's the lie.
That's it. You don't have to go any further. That's never happening.
I mean, he is, but
Well, yes, it is true, but it's not something he's going to admit.
And Hoshi is the only one who has a good time.
So I've got my fingers crossed that they're going to finally make it to Risa. We've had the last 2 episodes, they've hinted at this.
You're right.
No, it's Malcolm does not admit that he's attracted to men.
But it's so extreme that I'm like, maybe that one is actually somehow weirdly true.
How many times have I picked something because I wanted it to be true?
We have established that Star Trek has not yet invented gay people.
Not yet.
So I don't think that happens yet.
The only thing that I might
love it.
trip me up is that she gets him a gag gift. Is it intentional or is it not intentional? Does she give him something? That was my question too. That would be a trip up. No,
gag gift has to be intentional.
Malcolm does not. Malcolm does not admit that he is.
Yeah, I'm going with Malcolm.
I'm gonna. All right, I'm gonna go with Hoshi, just to be different.
Okay.
Just because I have hope.
You have faith.
All right.
Nope.
Well, we'll see.
All right, Jarrah, it's all you. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear the cold open.
The cold open.
You have the
cold open. Captain's log. They're going to Risa. You're in luck.
Yes.
Okay. It took a while, but they're going there. So we open on the Enterprise. T'Pol is walking Archer to the turbo lift with his duffel bag and with Porthos.
Wait, his lacrosse duffel bag?
Unclear, but I did not pay that close attention. We can look up afterwards and see if he has multiple duffel bags. Archer is doing that very classic Star Trek captain thing where he's like, oh, I shouldn't go on vacation. Other people are working. I don't like taking time off. Also, I'm questioning your capability to command the ship in my absence while we're just orbiting Risa. And he's like, well, you know how to reach me. And she goes, I don't anticipate any problems. And he says, well, it's the problems you don't anticipate.
Oh my God. Like, he needs to explain to her how to do things.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Then anyway, she does the classic maybe not first officer thing where she's like, you need a vacation. Anyway, they get in the turbo lift. He meets the other ones at the shuttle bay. People are walking down to load onto the shuttle pods. Hoshi is like, I'm so glad you're taking time off. And he kind of pretends, yeah, I definitely was into this. Then Rostov, who's random.
Hey, Rostov is back.
Yeah, wait,
Yeah,
who's
back.
Rostov?
He was the guy that got trapped in the jizz webs in the.
Yes.
The one with Renee Elise Goldsberry.
Yes,
Why can't she be back?
He was the guy who didn't get completely knocked out and unconscious during that episode.
Oh, that guy was so boring. Okay.
Bullshit.
So he's gonna fly the shuttle pods down.
Oh no.
But he goes like, Archer, Captain, do you want to fly the shuttle pod? And he goes, I'm on vacation.
So he's gonna make someone lower than him do it instead. Great.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm on Archer's side on this. Like, I'm the
Actually, I am
captain.
too.
It's like, motherfucker, you fly the shuttlecraft.
your
I'm the
ship, you do
captain.
that.
Except for that you were just arguing that you didn't want to give up command like 2 seconds ago. Okay. Then the last thing that happens before the theme song is that Trip is the last person to go down to the shuttle, and he gets up like weirdly into Paul's face and says, I'll bring you a souvenir.
Oh, okay.
Cue theme song.
Is Trip in a Hawaiian shirt?
No, but I am going to, when we come back, I'm going to send you a photo to look at of the outfits they're wearing.
I can't wait. This is great.
This means it is now time for our Diane Warren update of the week. I do have a little bit of breaking Diane Warren news this week, but before I get to that, Jarrah, what is your history with this theme song?
It slaps.
That was not what I was expecting at all.
Off the top rope. Amazing.
I think that really what instilled my love for it was not necessarily watching the show, but was the fandom sing-alongs. And so now it is deep in my heart. I will, though, say that I watched this episode with my partner who has never seen Enterprise before, and this was his first episode. And he said, like, wait, when was this show made? When he heard the theme song.
We had Andy come on and we made her watch it. Mm-hmm. And that is the same thing that she said.
Yep.
She was like, when was this show?
I watched not this episode, but the previous episode with a friend of mine, and it started playing, and his reaction was, ugh.
So we got an email from a listener today. Yes, we have a listener. Rachel emailed us this article today. It was an article from TMZ. The headline was, Diane Warren squashes Beyonce versus Taylor debate. No competition. And then 3 exclamation points.
Oh, no.
Wait, but who did she pick?
So the first sentence of this article is, Diane Warren ain't about that drama. She's shutting down the Beyonce versus Taylor Swift debate, saying both are icons in their own right, no matter what the polls claim about who's reigning supreme.
So you didn't shut it down at all.
Yeah, so I'm like, first of all, this is weird because Diane Warren rarely even does an interview or talks to the press. So I'm like, where was she that they talked to her? So there is a video in this TMZ article where basically paparazzi just accosted her while she was trying to leave a restaurant, and they were like, hey, did you see that Billboard said Beyonce was the greatest pop star of the 21st century, but some people say it should have been Taylor Swift. What do you think? And she looked like a deer in headlights. She was clearly just trying to get away from them, and she's like, I've worked with both of them, they're both great, bye. Yeah, that was it.
Really shut down the debate, huh?
They made this whole article about it. And the big question I had was, why are the paps following around Diane Warren? Like, that seems strange to me. So I did a little bit of digging based on things I saw in the background of the video. And I figured out that this was taken at the Tower Bar, which is inside Sunset Tower Hotel in West Hollywood, which is just 2.5 miles away from the Egyptian Theater, where the Tyler Perry movie, The 688, where Diane Warren has a song, was premiering that same night. So this is all to say, this was probably the after party for the premiere for that movie. So the paparazzi was not there for Diane Warren. They were there for Kerry Washington and Oprah, and then happened to get Diane Warren, and I guess assumed that this was newsworthy for some reason.
Jamie, you were doing some X-Files level red yarn on the wall level coordination of information here. This is amazing work.
When you are doing the research for the Diane Warren update, how many times do you run into a room and yell, I need this enhanced! Enhanced!
No, I was literally, because the background of the video
Scares
was
the cats.
blurry, but there was like some writing, and I was like trying to read it, and then they had the TMZ logo over some of the writing. It was confusing, and it was kind of difficult, but I did manage to figure out where it was taken. But the most surprising part to me about this TMZ article was at no point did they mention that there was a whole thing 2 years ago where Diane Warren said something really shady about Beyonce on Twitter and then had to apologize for it. I have been saving that story for a while, so I'm thinking that maybe we can kind of leave this on a cliffhanger and I can tell you guys that story next week. But I'm just really upset because I feel like if you're going to be like a gossip rag and turn what is nothing into a gossip story, it should have been like Diane Warren says that Taylor Swift is just as good as Beyonce 2 years after like she said this mean thing about Beyonce or whatever. Like they could have turned this into a feud and they didn't. So anyways, apparently whoever wrote this TMZ article is just not that familiar with Diane Warren lore. So I don't know. And look, when I saw Diane Warren and Beyonce were in the same headline, I was like, I'm clicking on this so fast because I know the history and did not even mention that. So anyways, thank you so much, Rachel, for sending that. She shut down
the debate by saying they're equally talented.
Yeah.
And that's it for this week's Diane Warren update of the week. So Jarrah, please tell us what happened next. I'm so excited.
All right. We open on the shuttle pod, and I'm going to post a link to a photo. You unfortunately can't see Tripp's Hawaiian shirt, but you can see the shirt that Travis is wearing, which looks like the result of a transporter accident between Wesley Crusher's sweaters and a tablecloth.
Oh my good lord.
Okay, that's fine. That's positively Urkel-esque. What is
Hoshi? That's not
Hoshi is on the make. What is going on, girl?
That was the second thing I noticed. I'm like, all right, Hoshi looks fucking awesome.
Hoshi's ready to rock. Like, I loved Trip's Hawaiian shirt before, but Hoshi is like, we're going to Risa, bitches. We're going to work.
Yeah, she's got her hair down.
Yeah, I love it. I love
I
it.
didn't realize her hair was that long. And the spaghetti straps.
Yeah.
Wait, is Malcolm wearing velour?
I think he's just wearing like a dress shirt, and
Okay.
I'll send you another picture of later what Malcolm and Trip wear, which is linen adjacent, like all the cool people do on vacation.
Is Travis helping fly the ship, or does he just have like an iPad or something? Or he brought his laptop?
Oh yeah, no, he's on vacation, but he's helping fly the ship.
Oh.
But Archer, who also has a console next to him, is ignoring his console and looking. This. I could talk about this for the next 45 minutes. But please continue. I'm very excited.
Poor ensign is in his uniform, so he takes them down, and then does he not get to enjoy the trip?
He's just the chauffeur.
The pilot, man.
Maybe he's going up and, back and forth, right? Because how many shuttles could they possibly have?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I just feel
They
bad
said
that
they
he's not going
drew
to get some
lots,
shore leave.
and not everyone gets to go. But it's presumably more than just those 2 shuttles.
But they can stay as long as they want.
Nope. You know how long they can stay?
45
2
minutes?
days and 2 nights.
2 days and 2 nights?
They will.
Fucking Christ.
They will say this many times.
Right, I forgot. I'd already forgotten that. So maybe they needed to say that over and over.
Unclear why only 2 days and 2 nights, but that is how long.
Yeah, because this crew doesn't have their mission is just wander around and meet people. So presumably they could spend a week on this planet if they
We were
wanted to.
literally just talking about this in the last episode. Like, they have no plan. They're just like, we're gonna go wherever.
Mm-hmm.
These guys look like dorks. Hoshi looks great. Everybody else looks like a dork.
Well, yeah, that all checks out.
This looks like a school trip. This looks like they're going to the Natural History Museum.
Well, maybe it will help if you hear about what their plans are for their time on Risa, because this is what this scene is all about, is them talking about their plans. Travis, his big plan is rock climbing. There's a super dangerous cliff that he wants to try out, and Archer and Hoshi both are like, hey, be careful, and he goes, well, if it's easy, what's the point?
Okay.
Malcolm and Trip. Malcolm says, Risa's very cosmopolitan. There are species from all over. And Trip goes, Malcolm and I plan to broaden our cultural horizons.
Okay.
Hoshi goes, is that all you two think about? Then I think Trip says, how we choose to relax is our own business. So thereby making the shuttle pod a hostile work environment.
Okay, saying you're going to Risa for sex is like saying you're going to, what was it, Club Med 2 for sex. Like, it's it's like the holodeck. It's what happens. It's like, why you go there?
Yeah. And then Archer also warns them to be careful. Hoshi is planning to learn languages. She says she feels she's too reliant on the universal translator, and all of the men start making fun of her. So Rostov's like, well, that's the point of the translator. And Trip goes, basically, I can't believe you're going to waste 2 days talking to people. Then Archer says he's never been one for vacations, but him and Porthos are going to relax.
I'm so excited that Porthos is going to get to run around on a beach, hopefully.
Yep, well, stay tuned.
Wait, is Porthos in the shuttle with them?
Yes, he is.
Yay.
So I don't know how this episode plays out, but Hoshi is going to a pleasure planet in a tube top and saying she's going to study languages. She is straight up lying.
Yeah, she's lying.
She's got some little spaghetti straps there, it looks like.
Yeah, that looks like a great dress. I can't wait to see the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like studying languages really is just like, you're like hanging out and chatting with people. That sounds fun. That sounds like something Hoshi would like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Then back on Enterprise, we're in sickbay where Phlox is about to hibernate, which we apparently learned in a previous episode. Denobulans do. So Cutler is going to inject him with something that's going to induce the hibernation. And because the crew members are only doing 48 hours, he's only going to make do with 48 hours of hibernation.
Just want to point out, she is an entomologist. I think Celix mentioned this when we learned about the hibernation. Phlox is a vet, we've established, but he is the closest thing to a doctor on the ship, and there is no one else. He doesn't even have assistants. Yeah. So when he's hibernating, what if somebody gets hurt? What if somebody needs a doctor?
Well, you have just channeled to Paul, who is saying, what happens if somebody gets hurt? And he says, Cutler's a really competent medic. If it's an actual emergency, you can wake me up, and only if it's an actual emergency.
She is an entomologist.
Wasn't there something about her being a medic or helping him, assisting him in the past?
I think she was thinking about going to medical school in the
She
future.
was in the previous episode where they suggested that Cutler and Flock could start dating. She was studying, they were going through the medical exam, like this muscle is connected to this muscle, to this muscle, to this muscle. That was back on the episode where they decided to commit genocide.
The Dear Doctor episode, yeah.
Yeah, the Dear Doctor, yeah.
I am glad to see Cutler again, though. I'm excited too.
Oh yeah, we're bringing back crew members. It's kind of exciting.
Yep. So back to Risa. Archer is entering his villa on the cliffs by the beach, which is just like you see an exterior shot of a bunch of nice houses along a lagoon, and then you see him entering what looks like a semi-dated resort. He opens his door and he finds a box on the table, which is a present from T'Pol, and it is a hardcover copy of the Teachings of Surrock, and it has a card that says to help you relax. So up to you whether you think that's an intentional gag gift, but I'm going heck yes.
Yeah, that's a gag gift.
I was hoping it was going to be, what was the statue that Riker told Picard to pick up on Risa?
The
which is
Horgon?
basically, yeah, that I'm down to clown, and just had it next to him for the entire time.
She got him like dissolving swim trunks.
Also, where did she get this? Did she had it replicated?
Out
Maybe
there.
like I don't.
Well, there's no replicators.
That's what I'm confused about.
She's
how
just
they
been
get things.
carrying around an English copy this entire time.
Okay. I mean, she was like, I feel like I might need gifts.
That makes sense.
So Archer goes out on the deck.
Sorry, maybe that's just the dust cover. It's actually Vulcan porn inside.
I mean, his reaction is to roll his eyes and put it back in the box. So I'm assuming that was the desired reaction. Then Archer goes out onto his patio and looks at the lagoon, and he hears a dog barking that's not Porthos. And he looks down onto sort of the kitty corner balcony below his, and he sees, do you know what a Chinese crested dog looks like?
Yes.
They're like kind of mostly hairless, and they got like little white hair on their like forehead and like around their ruff. It's one of those. And it's yapping, and then a blonde woman in a bathing suit and a sheer wrap skirt comes out to pick up the dog and makes eye contact with him before going inside.
It's a perfume commercial.
It shouldn't be a real dog. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it could be a dog-like creature, but
It would be a Klingon Targ.
To be fair, Chinese crested dogs do look like aliens. Like, they kind of, it's probably the most alien dog you're going to get without putting makeup on a dog, which you probably don't want to deal with.
What they should have done is use that dog-like creature from the episode where Kirk got split into the two components, where it was just basically like a Shih Tzu, but they put a horn on it, and the poor dog is like, I don't know what's going on here.
Help me.
Yep. I'm sending you another picture because the next scene we have Travis and Malcolm at the club.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, they're up in the
At the
club.
club.
All right, here we go.
Oh my God, Lord!
Yeah!
those sports
Can we-
jackets.
This is amazing. Is this Night at the Roxbury? Are they playing What is Love underneath this?
I really like the cut and collar on Malcolm's
It's
like
it's
jacket
like a
part.
little bit of a narrow jacket going on there.
Yeah.
Is Tripp's shirt beaming up in the middle of him wearing it?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. That thing looks like it glows.
Yep. So we follow a server who's got 3 layers of asymmetrically cut wigs stacked on top of each other. That's supposed to be your hair. Past tables of people in vacation garb over to Trip and Malcolm, who are dressed like you see in linen blazers and shirts and slacks.
Yeah.
And they are talking about who they might want to pick up and making, as you can also see, the type of facial expressions that you can read across a room and know exactly what they're saying.
Universal.
Yeah. Tucker goes, what about that one? And Reed goes, now I know you've been cooped up on a starship for too long.
Oof.
And Tucker goes, what's wrong with her? And Reed goes, well, nothing, I suppose. I just wouldn't know what eyes to look into. And then they both laugh. And then Reed goes, hey, now she's interesting. And Tucker goes, I don't think she is the right pronoun, but if you think it's worth the risk. And then Reed is like, I don't know, maybe I should have brought my scanner with me. And it is the worst.
If you can't tell, then it matters somehow.
Yep.
So
Yep.
sad.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Do
Okay,
they
you can go
not
back.
think that alien females might not have different genitalia? Just what? How?
Or that
Did
maybe
Cutler not give
some
them
aliens,
a course?
like that these aliens may not have a male and female
gender. Right.
or gender, or like the same type of gender. Like I really just don't like I know that aliens are not real, but just making fun of their physical characteristics and implying that they're
ugly.
like ugly. I hate that.
Yeah, it's ugly. I don't like it.
Yeah, like if you were looking across the bar at them, and you would definitely see that they're just like, ugh, her.
This picture that you have sent is universally, like, you show this picture to any woman in the world and they'd be like, hard pass, not going anywhere near that person. Like, those guys are trouble and I want nothing to do with them, based solely on the expressions of their faces.
Not even, this is literally a joke photo. They literally look like Night at the Roxbury. It looks like bad Miami Vice cosplay.
This episode won an Emmy for hairstyling.
Yes.
I know that it was them. I'm mentioning that because I was baffled finding this out.
Oh, well, I was excited.
I'm excited to see some of. I do love fun wigs. So,
And also,
hopefully that's what
maybe
they got
it was the
for.
layered server
the
wig.
crazy lip.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm also fascinated by the alien in the background of this picture.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to post this picture in the show notes.
The bartender
Obviously.
or the
No, not the
person who looks like
bartender.
female.
The lady, the
the
female
fact
presenting.
the fact that her head, the color of her skin abruptly ends at the neck, implying that the makeup artist couldn't be bothered to,
That's why she has a
correct.
scarf.
That is correct.
I want to point this, but I just want to point out that the bartender looks like he has a BIM mark from The Apple, which is one of the classic bad movies. That's
So Rysians have a thing in the middle of their forehead that is never really explained in any Star Trek, whether it's a tattoo or a religious or an adornment or a ritual or part of their alien physiology. We still don't get an answer to that.
Great. Never asked, never answered.
Yeah. But we're back in Archer's room, and he's back on the balcony, and it's nighttime, and we see the two moons. And he's also got a book that's not whatever book T'Pol gave him. He's got Porthos, and he's got what looks like a glass of iced tea.
He does like passion fruit iced tea, as has been established.
All right. Yeah, so he goes inside to refill his iced tea, and then he hears something on the balcony, and it sounds like that yappy dog from the other room. And he goes out onto the balcony, and the yappy dog is on his balcony, and him and Porthos are growling at each other.
Is it like a second story balcony?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
weird.
Then the doorbell rings. He picks up Porthos, and it's the lady from kitty corner downstairs who's come to get her dog. She walks out onto the balcony. She gets the dog. As she's leaving, they introduce each other, and she says her name is Kayla, and she is an alien, which you can tell because if you know the trill, she's got kind of like trill
Because
spots.
the only people that wouldn't be an alien would be the people from the Enterprise, presumably.
Yes. Well, but they're not trill spots. It looks like she is long healed from a terrible burn, and it's like kind of like pock marked.
Oh.
But I think they
interesting.
think it's hot, and it looks like down her sides and up around her belly button. They both say it's their first time on Risa. He asks her to recommend a restaurant, and she tells him about a restaurant where you wade out to a little boat and eat fresh seafood right off the deck. And he invites her And she says, well, aren't you here with your science officer? Because he mentioned before that he got this book as a gift from his science officer. And he says, no. And she says, well, in that case, but then pauses and says, oh, actually, I can't tonight, but tomorrow? And he goes, yes, let's definitely do that. She's wearing revealing beachwear. She's approximately the same age as Archer. Nice skin, blonde hair, weird looking dog.
Okay. That sounds like Archer's thing.
Yeah. Are the dogs at this point, like, interacting in any way, or are they forgotten?
It is pretty clear that they filmed them entirely separately because they're never in the same shot.
Got it.
Meanwhile, Hoshi is on a patio at like some kind of bistro, and she is listening to people to learn their languages.
Is she just like over here? Is she
Eavesdropping?
Yeah. So she's not in the conversations. She's just like scooched close to people and listening.
Yep.
I have never related to Hoshi more in my life. Like, this is 100% what I would do. Get on a patio with a book, pretend to read, and listen to everybody around me. I'm not going to actually socialize.
Yep. So there's this older Risian couple that is finishing up their dinner. She kind of like says, oh, I'm sorry, couldn't help it over here. It's a beautiful night, isn't it? Then they kind of are like, ha ha ha, you've never been here before, obviously, because it's always a beautiful night here. To ask them, she goes, please slow down. I'm just learning your language.
Oh, I see where this is going.
They go like, oh, you just are learning our language? Like, how long are you here for? And she goes, oh, 2 days and 2 nights. Of course. Which, by the way, it's been said already a couple times.
And also, that is not a normal way to say that.
Yeah. Like, you think just till tomorrow.
Yeah, for the weekend or, a couple of days. No.
Yeah.
2 days and 2 nights is extraordinarily weirdly specific.
That is 100% the 1970s Euro porn way of explaining how long you're going to be in a pleasure center. 2 days and 2 nights.
As she is having this conversation with them and they're complimenting on how fast she's learned Risian, there's a guy on the other side of the balcony who starts looking over because she's caught his attention, and he is wearing a gray v-neck shirt and high-waisted plaid pants with a belt.
Oh,
of course.
Wow. Okay.
Plaid pants, okay.
Yeah, he comes over and strikes up a conversation, and he says his name is Ravis. He asks if she's ever heard a language she couldn't learn, and they're speaking Risian. And she says, no, but Klingon was hard. Then he says, basically, do you think you could learn my language? She says, where are you from? And he says the name of his planet that is supposed to be basically unpronounceable. It's really long. It sounds like an elaborate Hungarian food stuff.
By the way, is all this in subtitles?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. I love that.
Yep. Then she asks him to say it slower, and he says, well, you can't. If you say it slower, it changes the meaning. Different. He says, like, don't feel bad. My people can barely speak it properly. But if you come to dinner with me, I'll teach you. And she nods.
Good line. Good line.
So she does the American tourist thing. Can you speak it louder and slower to me? Oh, I love this. The Awakening of Hoshi.
So now we're going back to the club where we all fam. Trip is saying the Vulcan database says no one leaves this club unhappy. Malcolm says, what do they know? They only mate once every 7 years. And Trip says, you can't really believe that. I doubt even T'Pol could hold out that long. And then Reed says,
God, don't talk about your coworker like that.
She's very disciplined.
Oh, no.
No, stop, no.
Like, I guess, what does it say about your club if even the Vulcans are like, look, I don't care who you are.
You're getting late if you go in there.
I don't care if you're the Medusa being that drives people insane with your hideousness. You're going to pull at this club.
I hate every time Malcolm and Trip talk about DePaul. I hate it. I hate everything about it, and I want no part of it. Like, fine, be gross to everybody. Stop being gross about DePaul. Like, she is your coworker. Quit your shit.
Also, I just hate these two together. Like, I just hate Malcolm.
I think the problem is you hate Malcolm.
Like, the problem. The more we get to know him, the more I dislike him. And like other characters, it's going the opposite way. Well, for some of them, I guess. At least for like T'Pol, for Trip has like really grown on me. But Malcolm, I can't stand him. And we never see Malcolm when he's not like saying or doing something weird or creepy.
And I think that like Trip, I have started to categorize as the show himbo. And Malcolm is the show incel. And so when they get together, it's bad. He corrupts the himbo. And I worry about him corrupting the vibe here.
Yeah. So,
that's my theory.
I mean, luckily for them, they seem to have drawn the positive attention of two very attractive Risian women.
Right.
Malcolm isn't really sure how to start the conversation and kind of whispers to Trip, I wonder if the cultural database has any suggestions. And Trip goes, if you wanted a cultural dialogue, you should have gone with Hoshi. And then the women come over and introduce themselves, and their names are Dion and Latia. Malcolm invites them to join them, and they say, we've been waiting for you to ask, and then order another round. Okay. Dion and Latia have never heard of Earth. Trip says they're new to the neighborhood, and Dion says, well, we'll have to make sure that your first visit to Risa is memorable. And the guys, like, smirk at each other, and Trip literally licks his lips.
I'm concerned they are getting scammed.
Then they wake up the next morning and both of their kidneys are missing.
I do feel like they're like everything I know about Risa is like I just always feel like 50% of the time you're gonna get scammed.
Back in Archer's room, Kayla calls up from her balcony. He is stargazing from the telescope that's on his balcony.
Oh, that's very on brand.
That's
nice. And she says, basically, don't you get enough of that on your ship? And he says, I never get enough. He says, basically, I can show you, and invites her up. Then he thanks her for the boat restaurant recommendation, says the boat with the seafood was the best he's ever had.
He went without her?
Yep. And she says, oh, I'm sorry you had to eat alone. And he says he had a good conversation with a couple from another planet celebrating their 300th wedding anniversary. And she goes, wow, they must have a lot of stories. And he goes, you can't imagine. Then he shows her Earth through the telescope, and she comments he's an explorer. He wouldn't be surprised if they're naming schools after him.
Let's rewind here for a second.
Okay. Yep.
Shows her Earth?
Yeah.
Where is Risa? Where is Risa in relation to
Risa
Earth?
does not exist.
I think he says it's like 90,000 light years. 90.
I could see maybe saying. I mean, here's the solar system.
Like he says that's our sun. Technically,
okay.
He shows her the sun.
That makes more sense.
There's a big blue thing, and then right under it, that yellow dot is the sun.
Gang, he is straight up lying to her. Okay, let's just be clear.
Oh,
this
right.
Is not,
Fair.
Okay,
That's
like,
not. Yeah.
No, there it is. No, it's there. And he's like, no. He's like standing behind her. No, over there.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and then he's like, well, how about you show me your planet? She's like, oh, I don't have a good sense of direction. And begins the driest flirting ever, where she says, I got lost on my way back from the lobby today. And he goes, well, I can see how that would happen. And she says, the villas all look the same. And he goes, well, you have to notice the subtle differences. And she says, yes, like the numbers on the door. And they It's like, is that supposed to be a
metaphor for all white men look the same on this show? Because all the white men do look the same, and you do have to notice the subtle differences.
Then he says, well, if you give me a couple of hours, I could have you navigating a starship, because that is what people want, to be taught a skill they have never bothered to learn because they don't enjoy it. And anyway, she goes, well, how about you just tell me about the places you've been, because it sounds like you've had some exciting times. Then we're back at the bar, and Reed and Malcolm are telling tall tales.
No, Malcolm Reed is one person.
Oh, sorry.
No, we have fallen into this trap
all the time.
Trip and Malcolm.
For those of you who are playing along, take a drink.
Trip and Malcolm are telling tall tales to the women. So Reed is going, why don't you tell them about the time you saved the Enterprise in your underwear? And Trip goes, yeah, I saved the captain's life. And then Latia points to Trip and goes, I thought you were the captain. And Trip goes, yeah, we rotate on our ship, and he's the captain next week. So they've been entertaining the women with tall tales of their Enterprise adventures. And then they suggest, Dion and Latia suggest, well, why don't you come see the subterranean gardens? They're full of luminescent plants. It's very romantic.
Is that a metaphor?
The subterranean gardens, really?
And Trip's like, oh god, I hope we're talking about the same thing.
So they go, yeah, absolutely. And so the women head downstairs. Trip and Malcolm follow them, and it looks like they're just going into a wine cellar, and they go, well, yes, the gardens are very secluded.
Oh boy. Uh-oh.
And you called it almost. They are going to be robbed. So
Yeah,
Dion and
like
Latia stand across for them and ask, how much do you make as a starship captain, and what valuables are you carrying? Trip goes, oh, I think there's been a misunderstanding. And Dion and Latia then shapeshift into these two burly humanoids with pointy ears and spikes on the back of their heads.
Ooh, fun.
They throw Reed and Tucker to the floor
Malcolm's
and
into it.
frisk them.
No, Archer would have been into it.
Yeah, fair.
And they frisk them for valuables. Trip goes, I hope this isn't their mating ritual. And then the aliens take their keys, but decide it's too risky to rob their rooms. So they'll just steal their clothes. So they stun them with an energy weapon. So we are back on Enterprise, and Travis has to come back to the ship because he's had a rock climbing accident and broke his leg.
That checks out.
Oh no, Phlox is in hibernation.
There's no health center on Risa?
There is, but he doesn't trust those people that haven't treated humans before.
That's fair.
Oh wait, so he's gonna go to Phlox, who is not actually a doctor. Okay, so there we go.
So he's going to go to the space vet.
He's gonna go to the person that has the most experience treating humans that he knows of. I get this.
Fair.
I support Travis in this.
In fairness, the entirety of Risa's medical facilities is treating STDs. So
Right, that's all they know.
I will note that T'Pol does get a nice moment in this scene where, you know, basically she says, why didn't you just stay at the hospital there? And he goes, have you ever been to an alien hospital? And she goes, yes, in San Francisco. And he's like,
that.
okay. But then he goes, they've never treated humans.
and they played jazz music over the PA.
So he's annoyed that Phlox isn't available. And Cutler says, don't worry, I can handle a broken leg. And Rostov has a moment where he says, but, you know, he was having some difficulty breathing in the shuttle. And Cutler goes, and Travis goes, what? And she goes, oh, it's probably nothing, but let's get you to sickbay. So they hobble him off.
Don't like where this is going.
Is something going to happen to Travis? Because that's unusual.
Yeah, it's nice to see Travis as part of the plot.
Real weird.
So we're back in the wine cellar, and Trip and Malcolm are in underwear and undershirts and are tied up around their wrists and ankles. and they are just waking up, bad headaches. They can see the sun, so they know they've been there all night. Trip starts yelling for help. Reed says he's already tried that, but the club's closed. Reed says the Vulcan database didn't mention anything about crime, and Trip sort of admits, like, actually, yeah, it kind of did, but it said it was really rare, and I just didn't say anything. And Reed is really annoyed.
Sorry, like, every time we have seen Risa, there's been crimes.
There's always crime on Risa, man. It's the one thing you can count on.
Time-traveling archaeological disasters.
Yeah, also like how the security officer doesn't think it's his responsibility to read up on the security on the planet.
Great point. Didn't even think about that, but great point. Jesus
Malcolm
Christ,
is not Malcolm is not the security officer. He's the armory officer. If it doesn't blow up, it's not his job.
Yeah,
So
is
then-
there a security officer?
I don't know. It's probably whoever the first officer is. So then Trip says basically like, you think this was my fault? And Reed goes, you were willing to follow two strange aliens into a basement. And Trip goes, gorgeous aliens. Don't forget, they were gorgeous.
Sure, that's an excuse.
Then Reed goes, they were male. And Trip goes, not at first. That is the end of that argument.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I especially like. How do they know that the other way that the aliens looked was really, or maybe these aliens don't have like a regular. I just because they look, I just hate it. I just hate it, and I hate the fact that they're just like, how could you possibly be into them? If they're men.
Well, it's so infuriating that they even have to. Why do we even have to have this conversation? Like, this does not move the story forward in any way. I suppose they think it's funny, but it's not, and it's really infuriating. Like, you could remove that conversation entirely and still have a perfectly good episode. Like, it doesn't...
Yeah, guess what? Not a good show.
Not a good show. I know. I'm so angry.
Back in sickbay, Travis feels terrible, and you can tell this because he is real sweaty. And Cutler says it seems like he's having an allergic reaction to the Rysian painkiller. If the swelling gets any worse, it will start to constrict his airway. And so Travis goes, okay, cool, can we wake up Phlox now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, Cutler is an entomologist who is thinking about going to medical school and learning, like, through books. I don't trust her with this. I like Cutler, but
She doesn't know how to administer Benadryl. It is obvious from this scene. So then we're back on the bistro patio with Hoshi and
a lot of
Ravis.
Like, we've talked about how this show rarely has a B plot. Like, there's one
like
plot per
7
episode.
plots.
They put all the B plots for the whole season in this episode.
So Hoshi, where's Hoshi? She's in the bistro with
With the boy.
That
Ravis,
guy?
who's the
boy.
guy
Okay,
who
is
is
she-
looking at her across the
The plaid pants guy.
Just to ask this question, what is Hoshi wearing?
Oh, she has a change of clothes. It is a purple t-shirt.
Oh, so she's just casual, Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Her hair looks real nice though. Similar, she got like the curlers out,
Like
and
the-
like it's
is
all
it
in
like
like
the
tresses.
Straight on the
Yeah.
top, curly on the bottom look.
Yeah.
Love
Like
it.
the CW look. I love it.
Yeah. It's implied that they just met up again for breakfast, and
They have breakfast. Should I
he
call you or just nudge you?
yes. And she is still having a hard time with his language. They kiss. Then he says, oh, I was planning to go to a steam pool today. It's very relaxing. You should come. Then she says, avec plaisir. That's French. And then takes his hand.
Oh, she's having the best time.
She's
on this
having the
planet.
best-
Fantastic.
It makes me happy.
Does Hoshi say, I was hoping to master your tongue?
I am a cunning linguist.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Then we're back in Archer's quarters, and Kayla comes over and says, let's take our dogs to the beach. He says, I'm just having breakfast. Do you want to join me? And pours her some orange juice. And she picks up the Sirach book, and he says, oh, sorry. I messed up before.
Okay.
He doesn't tell her about the book into Paul earlier, but he does say my science officer said I need to relax. So later here, he says this was a gift from his science officer because Vulcans think humans are too controlled by their emotions. And she goes, I knew there was a reason I liked you.
Cute.
At this point, he goes, you know a lot about me, but I don't even know your dog's name. She says, my dog's name's Rilo.
Aw, that's a cute
What
name.
else do you want to know? And he says, everything else. What's your planet's called? Wants to know what she does, if she has a family. And she goes, well, I don't want to spoil our wonderful time together. He says, how would that spoil it? And she goes, I did have a family. They were killed. My parents, my brother, my husband. It was our fault. We had been warned about the Suliban. We should have got out when we had the chance. And he stands up because she has uttered the magic word. And he goes, the Suliban. She goes, you know them? And he goes like, yes. And there's dramatic music.
Also, Archer has a very fraught relationship with the Suliban. Like, he's saved them sometimes and fought them sometimes. And one time they saved his ship from destruction, sorry. All right.
Sometimes I feel like people on this show should get saved from discussion.
That is
Mostly to Paul.
yeah.
On Enterprise, Cutler wakes up Phlox, and it's rough. He's having trouble telling what's going on. He thinks everyone is the captain. He has to be shown how to turn on the scanner.
Great. So Travis is feeling better and better.
Yeah, and they're going, well, maybe we should just take you back to bed. We immediately go back to Archer's quarters, where it is now dark. And it was just breakfast. He asks, how's your ankle? And she says, it's better, but she should have watched where she was stepping. The water was very shallow, and it seems like she stepped on a turtle and rolled her ankle.
I hope the turtle was okay.
I hate when
Yeah.
that happens.
Okay.
You step on
So
a
wait, how
turtle.
many? Because we know this episode is 2 days and 2 nights. They got down there. They had the one night. Have they had 2 nights?
No, it's nighttime
This-
now. This is the second
So now
night.
this
Yeah.
is the second night. Okay.
Yeah, they're
Just trying to
leaving the next morning.
Check when this
Okay.
episode is going to end.
We have
Yes.
1 night and 1 day left.
Yeah.
All right.
And then he says, no, you couldn't have seen it. The thing was camouflaged. And she sighs, camouflaged. We could only see them when they moved. And he's like, what? The turtles? And she goes, I wasn't talking about the turtles.
he triggered her, is what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she starts to kind of be like, look, you've encountered them. You need to tell me what you know. I'm told they take their orders from the future. Where are their ships? Where do they live? He starts to get a bit suspicious. And he says, oh, well, you didn't seem to like this wine, so I'm going to open the other bottle and we'll pour you some of that. He goes over to like this little dresser thing that's behind where she's sitting, where the wine is. And he knocks a cork off the table so that he has a reason to bend down into his bag and grab his scanner. And like turns it on and shoves it back in his bag. And then he says, well, I don't know much, but I can tell you some things. Why don't we go take a walk on the beach? I will note she is still wearing the heels and the same dress she was wearing before they had their turtle mishap. So just a comment.
She's wearing her heels even though she like sprained her ankle.
Yep.
And she's
Yep.
going to wear these heels with a sprained ankle on the sand. Great idea.
I predict
Yeah.
this episode ends with, to Paul's personal log, we have finished reconstituting everyone's kidneys that had been stolen on Risa.
Then he says, but it's pretty cold, you should get a sweater. So she leaves to go back to her quarters. And a bit later, she comes back, and Archer says her surgeons did a great job removing her distinctive forehead feature that all Tandarans have, because he transmitted the scan to Paul. Paul had the computer analyze it. And so he says, you're a Tandaran. Did Colonel Grat send you, which is a throwback to Detained?
Detained.
No, it is actually Dean Stockwell. Dean Stockwell has quantum leaped into the body of this
That's
wolf.
She puts a hand on his arm and pulls it back, and her nail scratches his hand and it draws blood. And she goes, I'm sorry. And then he like gets all woozy and like falls to the floor dramatically.
Oh no.
And she goes, I can't have you interfering. And
sorry.
Yeah.
Having just like in your nail, like the edge of your nail, like somehow like putting poison in your nails seems very dangerous.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not.
what if you accidentally scratch someone or yourself?
Or you go to the bathroom and, have to wipe.
Wouldn't it just have made more sense to like have a syringe, like to have a device that you
we will be
take
taking
out?
no further questions, Jamie.
That makes as
perfect
much sense as the Suliban putting their thing that tests if someone is telling the truth on the tip of their tongue, so that the only way to tell if somebody else is telling the truth is to put your tongue in their mouth. Yeah.
What if you have a cyanide capsule in your teeth, but you grind your teeth in the middle of the night and you forget to put your mouth guard in?
Oh, sorry. It just makes no. It makes
Well,
no
and to be fair, there have been many spy novels about women who put poison in their lipstick and kiss somebody.
Yeah.
Like I've seen many that story. That is not that unusual, to be fair.
It just seems so silly.
Yes, it is.
downstairs, Reed and Tucker are walking back through the bar in their undergarments.
Very on brand for Trip, my man.
Very
Yeah.
that man.
Is their underwear the like blue underwear?
Yeah, it's blue underwear, and Trip is wearing
Like the blue tank?
tank top, and Malcolm is wearing a V-neck t-shirt.
Okay.
But it matches it, like
Because-
it's all the same color.
Yeah, all the blue.
Because Connor Trenier has better shoulders.
It's entirely possible. Apparently they cut their way out by Trip smashing a bottle and using it to like saw the ropes, and it spilled all over them and they really smell.
My man.
And some people snicker at them as they walk out.
The first day when they woke up, they said yelling doesn't work because the club is closed. But presumably later there were people at the club because they spent the whole day and the next night tied up.
Oh, no. So the first night overnight, they were knocked out. They woke up the next
Yeah.
morning and they spent the whole day sawing themselves, sawing the ropes off until that evening.
Oh, okay, right. It was that evening. Okay, we're still.
Yeah, but the
we
club
haven't
is
gotten to the
open
next
when they
morning.
go back up.
My boy.
Okay. So they're walking through the club in their underwear. I love it.
Please tell me that the opening of Thrift Shop by Macklemore was played. Walk up in the club. Like, what
I forgot to mention it, but I will go back just for this. At the very first time when Reed and Tucker walk into the club, when they're like ogling all the women, they toast, and then they're like, what are we toasting to? And they go, 2 days and 2 nights.
Oh my god.
So the next morning, we see Hoshi wake up to the sun coming through the window. She's lying in what looks like a very comfy bed, and Ravis is there.
Yeah!
Hot damn.
Hoshi!
Yeah.
Get some!
And she kisses him, and he wakes up, and he asks what she'd like to do today. And she says she could spend an entire day right there, but she's getting picked up soon. 2 days and 2 nights. That's all we had.
And Hoshi says, you need to get the fuck out of here.
And then he says, I hope you don't feel... And she goes, taken advantage of? Haha, no. And then hugs him. And that's the end of that scene.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
I'm good for glad that Hoshi at least had a good time.
Yeah.
Nobody else did, but Hoshi had a good
Which
time.
was the
Yeah.
truth.
So back in sickbay, Phlox injects Travis with something and he starts to stabilize, and which immediately makes him not sweaty. And that is the magic of the future. And then he goes to say thanks, but Phlox is like snoring face down on a bio bed. Then back on the planet, Archer wakes up and winces. He has to drag himself to his feet. He runs out to the balcony and looks down at Kayla's balcony and sees it's empty and makes mad faces.
We're familiar with Archer Madface.
And our final scene is back on the shuttle pod. And Trip and Reed are wearing bathrobes over their undergarments.
They didn't have other clothes in their room?
No.
We saw them wearing down other clothes. We don't know why they were...
They took their keys, but they said they weren't going to steal their stuff from their
They said
room.
they weren't going to steal their stuff in their room.
Which I don't know why not. Like, that seems the better robbery. How much is this clothes worth?
It's a post-scarcity society. Like, they literally don't have money.
Yeah, but there's no way that the clothes that they're wearing are valuable, but there could be valuable things in there.
I'm sorry, Jamie. Look at the clothes that they were wearing. Can you not say, there's some Ferengi out there that's rocking that?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And they're all asking each other how things went. Hoshi says she learned several new conjugations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did.
Reed asks Archer if he had a good sleep. Archer said he went out like a light. And Trip says, well, next time instead of reading, you should try to get out and meet new people. And that's roll credits.
All right.
The
Classic
Archer
ending.
storyline is confusing because it feels like it's connecting to stuff, and therefore we should learn something more about the Suliban or whatever the time war thing. But then we don't.
I think what we learn is that the Tendarans aren't like a one-off. Like, I thought the Tendarans were going to be like a one-off, we never see them again, but apparently they actually did. You know how they keep making enemies for life? They actually did make an enemy for life who is there's going to be consequences to that, because
I'm unclear. What was the woman trying to get from Archer?
Intel on the Suliban.
she was trying to get exactly the same thing that Dean Stockwell was trying to get in Detained.
Fair enough.
Tell me about all your experience with the Suliban. What did they want? What do you know about them? All of that.
What do they eat for breakfast?
This episode sounds really fun, though. Aside from the Archer storyline does sound kind of boring. The Travis storyline, I just want more for Travis. Like, I would have loved to see Travis having a good time.
Right, and I feel like the Travis storyline was actually a Phlox Cutler storyline more than a Travis storyline.
Which is every Travis storyline.
Which is
every
every
Travis storyline. Travis is there to fulfill somebody else, like,
To
moving
move along
forward
somebody
in their
else's
story or
story,
personality. Or
I will say
something.
the Trip Malcolm storyline sounds like it would have been more fun if it had gone further. If it was like a Martin Scorsese Into the Night, it was like, okay, well, this is the most obvious thing that could have happened. And then it got crazier.
Yeah,
and
I
then
agree.
in escaping from this, wine cellar, they ended up on a ship that took them halfway across the planet. And then this happened. And then this It was like,
And
don't even
that
believe
would have been
it.
fun. Like, every time we check back in with them, there's
It
like
gets
something
worse.
wild.
And it's
happening.
only, it would be really fun if it was just like only like a 5-second clip, like of them just screaming or in another situation. Like, just we never actually know what happened.
1,000%.
So
Like,
much
we
better.
don't even know. Like, like they're having to sell their underwear to get across the border crossing. Like, and they're riding on goats across.
I love it.
Like,
Yes.
I love that.
Crazier.
We always write a better episode.
We're always like, what if this episode, but then this happens?
This episode didn't even have the budget to show anyone on a beach. So,
Okay, so
I fully
never
appreciate
put
it.
those-
The show was shot in Los Angeles.
okay, so Jarrah, why were you so eager to share this episode with us?
When I watched it, I was like, I am compelled to make a series of graphics about this because I was just so annoyed by the broiness of it all.
Yes.
I do find it entertainingly bad, and so just thought it would be fun to talk about.
I'm very excited for it. Like, it seems like a terrible episode, but I'm actually excited. Like, it seems like a fun, bad episode.
When I was putting forth the idea of doing this podcast and had not seen any Enterprise, my hope was that the show would be at times good, most of the time probably middling, sometimes bad, but when it's middling and bad, my hope was it was like a fun bad, like that there's still fun stuff there. And for the most part, like sometimes we get that, and sometimes we just get it's just boring.
Well,
And
sometimes it's
at
an
its
episode
worst
I
when it's
have.
boring. You
But,
get
like,
the worst
there
episodes.
are
Maria.
episodes like that in every Star Trek that are just completely forgettable, and those are the worst. They are the worst ones to podcast with. I was like, this one is memorable.
I respect it more if the show is like trying to do big things or interesting things and failing at it than if it's just not really doing anything at all. And like, this definitely sounds like an episode where they were really going for something. I'm trying to even think of another Star Trek episode that has like 4 disparate plot lines like this that aren't even really connected at all.
I mean, I can think of some that are 2-parters, but off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are 4 plots happening, but I kind of thought it more as like the Phlox plot on Enterprise and all the stuff happening on Risa.
Right. Cool. Well, I'm actually excited to watch it, as I said.
Yeah, me too.
This show feels like people who are tired of making Star Trek, who are offered a lot of money to continue.
That is literally what a lot of it is. They will talk about it.
UPN offered them, like, we need this show. You need to make this show.
So you obviously got the 2 truths and a lie outcome very easily.
Oh yeah, wait, what was the lie again?
The lie was that Malcolm admits he's attracted to men, when in fact he vociferously protests the fact that any man could be attracted to men.
I just feel like they were worried that people would think Malcolm was gay, and so they have to have, every time we see Malcolm, he's like, I'm not gay. Guys, I'm not gay. Just making sure you know I'm not gay. But the more he protests, the more he really seems like he's gay.
Like a reverse Michael McKean in Clue.
I just feel like he'd be a better character if they just let him be gay.
Yep.
It would all be
and like
really
remove the whole
interesting.
person of his personality that is just like weirdly obsessed with women but also doesn't really seem to like women. You get rid of that, you just make him gay, and I would actually like the character.
Me too. I
It wouldn't
agree.
annoy me so much.
I do have a Porthos good boy scale.
Yes.
First off, in terms of Porthos scenes, we see him in the shuttle pod both ways. He seems to be being a good boy. He does growl at the dog that belongs to the sketchy lady, which we still don't know how the dog got up there, because
Fucking Porthos.
yeah.
Nobody
I'm sorry.
listens to Porthos, man.
I need, every time Porthos growls at something, is like, Archer, pay attention to your damn dog.
Yep.
He is telling you.
Porthos is the Cassandra of this series.
However, he does not protect Archer when he is knocked out. And then we see the next morning when Archer wakes up, Porthos is like licking his face to wake him up. And as soon as Archer opens his eyes, he just runs off.
Yeah, he's like, cool.
He's like, it's
my
breakfast
job
time.
is done. I gotta go get some
Breakfast. But a fun Porthos trivia is that the 2 dog actors in this episode actually had previously worked together before as spy partners in the movie Cats and Dogs.
Put that down.
Also, the dog that played Porthos until this point was named Prada, and they felt that the dog was not spunky enough. So this is the last episode in which Prada plays Porthos.
Oh no.
Prepare for a new Porthos going forward.
A spunkier Porthos.
Porthos too.
Do you know if the second Porthos was a male dog?
I think so.
Because that was
Yeah.
what that. So I watched a little clip of Scott Bakula talking about it, but then I had to stop because I didn't want to get spoiled on stuff. But that's what he said. He said Porthos was a girl, and it was a whole big thing because it was hard. They had to they had to do all kinds of stuff to film so that it wasn't clear that she was a girl. And I was like, or you could have just made Porthos a girl.
Yep. So I looked it up, and apparently the producers did not want the audience to be looking at the dog's junk. And so even though it was a male dog, they cast female dogs because otherwise we would be distracted.
But just make the character a female dog.
Yeah. And they also had to paint a spot on the second dog's side so it matched.
Oh, come on.
I also have a little bit further detail for what the Phlox.
Oh, please.
Because this was a delightful Phlox episode. When they wake him up from hibernation, he jolts up and gasps and then just starts yelling nonsense. And then goes, I don't care what it tastes like. And then stands up and says, I have a patient to treat, and then immediately falls flat over and says, I could use some assistance, please.
Oh, I love that.
When he scans Travis, he says, he's having a reaction. He needs Regulin bloodworms. And Cutler grabs these, like, dried ones from the counter. And he says, no, fresh is better. And then opens the comm and goes, like, maximum warp to Regulus. And they're all like, okay, doctor. And they said, let's take you back to your quarters. And he goes, I think it's best if we keep our relationship professional. I
love this. Basically like a high flux.
I love
it.
Yeah, that's great.
It's good.
But also, like, it sounds like he really should not have been treating anybody in that state.
Amazing.
Travis is lucky to be alive.
Yes, chef, for this week. One thing to note is that the only thing we ever see them eat on Risa is fruit salad. And we see Archer eating fruit salad, and it looks like just like normal earth fruit salad on like a bed of lettuce. And so when he invites her in for breakfast, presumably he's sharing a plate of fruit salad with her. More importantly, when Hoshi and Ravis are on the patio, the server brings over fruit salad that Hoshi just ordered. And Ravis says, what is this thing called? And she picks it up. And it's clearly a strawberry. And she says, we don't have anything exactly like this on Earth. Its closest thing would be a strawberry. And then he goes, and this? And she picks it up with her fork, and it's clearly a kiwi slice. And she nibbles it and says, tastes like a kiwi. And then he says, in my language, kiawi is, may I show you? And kisses her. And then he invites her to the steam pools, and she's literally just ordered breakfast and eaten like a bite of a piece of kiwi, and they just leave.
Finish my breakfast, please.
So keep an eye out for the earth fruits in this episode.
For that.
It's so funny.
So that's all I have for this episode, folks.
Thank you so much.
This is so great.
This is a segment of our show that we like to call Will's Hollow Recs. We all know what one William Riker is doing in his holodeck. That is right. He is binging Enterprise. But what do we think that he should be doing instead? Maria, what is your recommendation today?
This episode will be coming out right around Valentine's Day. Also happens to be my partner Steven's right around his birthday, so happy birthday, Steven. But if you are looking for a fun and romantic movie, one of my favorite movies is the 1993 adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. Cannot beat it. It's just a lovely, it's my favorite, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, and it's a really lovely adaptation. So Much Ado About Nothing, 1993.
My favorite movie of all time.
It's such a great movie, right?
Yeah.
Beatrice is one of the greatest characters ever created, I believe.
I have never seen it, despite the fact that I've seen Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet like so many times.
It's way better.
But I've never. I
It's
gotta watch
It's
it.
got Keanu
I think you're skipping
Reeves.
over Keanu Reeves, yes. And let's not
Listen.
forget Michael Keaton as
Keaton is great.
Yeah.
Dogberry.
As Dogberry. It's wonderful. Just a wonderful adaptation.
I've got to see that. All right, Bill, what is your recommendation today?
So this episode of Enterprise is about a trip that goes horribly wrong, but ends up maybe being okay. So my recommendation is a movie from 2010. It is called The Trip, directed by Michael Winterbottom, and starring Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. They are playing fictional versions of themselves, and they go on a trip through northern England to very fancy restaurants where they have they're both going through personal crises and have fantastic meals and talk about their lives and what they're going through. And it is a complete fiction because these two were not friends when they started making this movie. But The Trip, 2010, but directed by Michael Winterbottom.
All right, and Jarrah, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yeah, it's not necessarily brand spanking new, nor is it a classic, but I have been catching up on the show Smarty Pants on Dropout, which is basically a PowerPoint party where the people do little PowerPoint presentations on things like how the time loop in Groundhog Day was actually created by the piano teacher, or which cryptids are the most dank, and other weird topics.
Okay.
And it is delightful and funny, and I recommend.
Sounds amazing.
All right, my recommendation today is the video game Metaphor Refantazio, which I started playing because friend of the pod, who we've had on, Celix, basically bullied me for a couple of weeks until I was like, fine, I will play this game. They were like, Jamie, you will love this game. Play this game. So I finally started playing it, and it turns out they were right. I love this game. It's a JRPG, but the fighting parts of it are, I mean, I don't know. I put it on easy mode so I could get through all the fighting faster, so I could get to all the scenes where I just hang out with all the other characters, which is my favorite kind of video game, where it's just like, I'm just like having heart-to-hearts with all the characters and moving story along. If you do like fighting stuff, there is a lot of that too. I just set it to easy so I could get past it quicker and get to all the fun character stuff. But yeah, I love a game where it's just like you have a bunch of characters and they're just hanging out, and that's a large portion of this game. But otherwise, you're just running around from city to city and chatting with people, which is also what I like to do in a video game. So that's Metaphor Refantazio, which I know is a quite the mouthful of a name. And no, I do not know what the name means, despite being near the end of this game. And that's the episode. Thank you for listening. In 2 weeks, Bill will be watching the Enterprise Season 1 finale, Shockwave Part 1. That's right, you guys, we did it. We have survived. We are so close to making it to the end of Season 1.
Bill will be reviewing the episode Caves, Caves, Caves.
Genuinely did not think we'd ever get here.
Absolutely.
It's been a long road.
Stop it.
Thank you.
It has been a long road.
Stop it.
That was almost the name of our podcast. Jarrah, thank you so much for coming on and for doing the explainer. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find our podcast Women at Warp at Women at Warp on Instagram. We're also at womenatwarp.com and on Facebook. And you can find me at trekkiefeminist.com.
All right. Special thanks to K.O. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for our beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you liked the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We would really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as @EnterpriseSplaining, and on Blue Sky as @EnterpriseSplain. You can also email us any comments or questions, such as, did Porthos fuck that space dog? to enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee as Enterprise Splaining. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Computer and program.
Did Porthos fuck that space dog?
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.